I started researching this topic back in October because I meant for this podcast to go up in October, but clearly here we are in March and it didn't happen. So today we're talking about pumpkin pie spice. So if we can channel fall, the feelings of fall, the cozy autumnal vibes, let's talk about pumpkin pie spice, what it is. So it's a very American spice. Okay, we Americans just... When August hits, it's pumpkin spice everything. Just anything you could ever want to eat or drink, there's a pumpkin version of it. So, pumpkin pie spice is, as it is named, it was like meant for pumpkin pie. But it's in everything now. It signifies fall. In the fall, if we can think back to October at the very least, you saw it everywhere. There's the pumpkin spice latte that is no longer just from Starbucks, but that's probably who you think of when you think of a pumpkin spice latte. There's pumpkin spice candles. There's a load of pumpkin desserts. And I remember seeing pumpkin spice frosted flakes. And thinking about it now is probably good. At the time when I saw it, I thought that was just going way too far. And it was August when I saw them. And this is way too early for this. But, companies are going to make their money. So what really is pumpkin pie spice? There's no pumpkin in it. If you've ever had plain pumpkin, like pumpkin puree, not pumpkin pie filling, pumpkin puree tastes nothing like what pumpkin pie spice smells like. And pumpkin pie spice is the exact same thing as pumpkin spice. You just drop the pie. So pumpkin pie spice, same thing. So I Googled pumpkin pie spice to find out what it is, the history behind it, and I was hit with a bunch of recipes on how to make it. So I will get there. I will give you recipes on how to make it yourself. But I wanted to give you the other information that I found as well. So, of course, when doing research, I started with Wikipedia, because why not? So Wikipedia says that pumpkin pie spice is similar to the British and Commonwealth mixed spice, which is generally a blend of cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger, cloves, and sometimes allspice. McCormick, which is one of the biggest names in spices, their spice blend contains cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, allspice, and no cloves. World Spice's brand, their blend of pumpkin pie spice contains 2 types of cinnamon: nutmeg, ginger, allspice, mace, orange, cloves, and Indian cayenne. So there was a little tidbit in the article that I was reading, and I'll leave all my sources below, but it was clear to signify that mace, the spice, is not the same as pepper spray. So if I can just go off on a little tangent here, we'll bring it back. So mace is not the same as pepper spray. As I said, pepperspraystore.com, very legitimate, states that mace, the spice, is ground from the outer shell of the nutmeg and dried. It has a sweet, spicy flavor. The mace used for self-defense is named that after the ancient Greek weapon. So, not mace, pepper spray, not the same as mace, spice. Now you know. So back to pumpkin pie spice. These spices work really well to enhance the flavor of sweet pumpkin recipes. So McCormick is allegedly the original inventor of pumpkin pie spice. Is that true? I don't know. That's just what the interwebs said. McCormick, started selling pumpkin pie spice back in 1934. Long time ago. And since pumpkin spice is now, I feel like it's more, when you think of pumpkin spice, you think of the latte before you think of making a pumpkin pie. So the pumpkin spice latte, the PSL, Starbucks introduced it in 2003, which shocked me because I guess I didn't become aware of the pumpkin spice latte until 2013. So the PSL has been out for 20 years, just over 20 years, and I only learned about it 10 years ago, which is still quite a while ago, but I didn't realize the pumpkin spice latte was that old. I just wonder if it wasn't as popular until about 10 years ago or so. I found a copycat recipe of the pumpkin pie spice that McCormick makes, and I'll share that with you guys. Since they claim to be the OG, I feel like they deserve their recipe deserves some credit. So you will need only 4 spices, remember, no cloves. So 3 tablespoons of cinnamon, 1 tablespoon of ginger, 1 teaspoon of nutmeg, and 1/4 teaspoon of allspice. So mix those together and store them in an airtight container if you're not going to be using it right away. However, there are a ton of different variations that you can use, and you can always tweak the recipe so that it has the layers of flavor that you prefer. Maybe you don't like allspice that much. Maybe you drop the allspice altogether. Thinking of the pumpkin recipes that I make, I just made pumpkin bread this last week, and it didn't call for pumpkin pie spice. It called just for cinnamon, nutmeg, and ground clove. That's it. Whereas I have a pumpkin pancake recipe that the original recipe calls for pumpkin spice, but I use cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, and clove. So I add in the ginger. So depends on what you like. If you like pumpkin pie spice, once you buy it or once you make it, you're of course going to need more recipes to further enjoy all of your pumpkin delicacies. So just like I said, pumpkin bread, pumpkin pancakes, and I'll leave the recipes that I use down below. There's pumpkin pie, of course, and I'm gonna go back to one of the maybe earliest recorded recipes of pumpkin pie. So we'll talk about that. But you make pumpkin pie, pumpkin chocolate chip cookies. I have a really good recipe for that. Pumpkin muffins. With the pumpkin muffins and the pumpkin bread, sometimes people like to do a cream cheese swirl in that, or like a cream cheese frosting. Pumpkin pie caramel blondies, pumpkin maple pecan granola, pumpkin spice sugar cookies, and I could go on and on with all the pumpkin desserts that you can make. But going back to pumpkin pie, I mentioned a recipe from this cookbook when I did my pound cake recipe. So American Cookery is the first known published American cookbook, and it has 2 recipes for pumpkin pie. I don't know, they probably called it pumpkin pie, but they spelled it Pumpkin. So pumpkin pie. So there were 2 versions. It's very interesting. They don't have titles. It's kind of just like number 1. I don't know. I'll link the source that I used that talked about this recipe, but number 1 is 1 quart of stewed and strained. They don't say pumpkin, but I'm guessing pumpkin. 3 pints cream, 9 beaten eggs, sugar, mace, nutmeg, ginger, laid into paste number 7 or 3. So a paste is a pie crust, and then there are recipes for number 3 or number 7 crust recipes. So, and then with a dough spur, cross and checker it and bake in dishes 3/4 of an hour. Now, the article that I used, it didn't specify temperature. But if you were here for the pound cake podcast episode, they also didn't use a degrees. It wasn't like bake at 350 for 45 minutes. It was bake on a low oven. I don't know, very different time. They didn't have the wonderful oven contraptions that we do now. So number 2 pumpkin pie recipe called for 1 quart of milk, 1 pint of pumpkin, 4 eggs, molasses, allspice, and ginger in a crust, bake 1 hour. So there's no cinnamon, which I don't know if cinnamon grows in America. Is that a completely imported spice? Part of me thinks so. I don't know. If you know, let me know. So very interesting. pumpkin pie recipes. But that is the long and short of what pumpkin pie spice is. It's not necessarily one specific thing, but it's a mixture of warm spices that enhance the flavor of pumpkin desserts. When I was doing the research for this little podcast, I thought of, well, what's the difference between pumpkin pie spice and apple pie spice? And that's just going to have to be another episode. Probably a short one, but another episode. So thank you for listening. If you guys are new here, this is the Recipes with Ray podcast. If you're listening on podcast, I also have a YouTube channel where you can watch this episode. And on that YouTube channel, majority of that channel is sharing recipes that I just feel like making. So if that interests you, I'll link my YouTube channel down below in the show notes. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in